Hello viewers, in this lesson we will learn about various kinds of securities. Objectives: to learn about shares and stock, to learn about debentures and debenture stock, to learn about derivatives, to learn about other kinds of securities. This lesson explains the various kinds of securities, their definitions, meaning and the modus operandi to make use of them in the capital market. Shares and stock. Shares and stock are dealt with by corporate entities. Business can be carried through different modes such as sole proprietorships, partnerships, cooperative societies, statutory organizations, corporate entities, also called companies. Most of the business in the world is carried through this company form of organization. A company is an artificial person having an independent entity different from its members. It can sue and can be sued. It is created under law and it ends only under the due process of law called winding up proceedings. The companies have two sources of funding to carry their business objectives called share capital and loan capital. Share capital is procured by issuing shares, stock to the shareholders of the company who are the members of the company and take the decisions about the governance of the company in accordance with the objects clause of the Memorandum of Association of the company, company law and other related corporate laws. And loan capital is raised by issuing debentures, bonds, borrowing different kinds of loans, fixed deposits and like ones wherein the subscribers, lenders or the creditors of the company. Now we will discuss about the definition, meaning and nature of shares and stock. Definition of shares. Share in general connotation has a different meaning like a right or a part or a definite portion or division of a thing owned by several persons. It could be a reference to individual part of interest over a common undivided interest which belongs to several persons in common. In the present context of studying the law of investments and securities, a share has to be viewed as a security as defined under the Companies Act 2013 and under the legislations like the Securities Contracts Regulation Act 1956 and other allied legislations. The entire corporate existence depends upon the shareholding of the persons running the affairs of the company. Shares are also called equities. Under subsection 84 of section 2 of the Companies Act 2013, share means a share in the share capital of a company and includes stock. Thus, a share is an individual holding of a shareholder in the total share capital of the company. The total share capital of the company is divided into small segments called shares. As for example, a company may be having a share capital of rupees 10 lakhs, which would be divided into 1 lakh shares of rupees 10 each. That means the total share capital of the company is rupees 10 lakhs divided into 1 lakh shares of rupees 10 each. The individual face value of a share is rupees 10, even though the market value may differ. In the decision making of the affairs of a company, the majority shareholder's voice will prevail and the majority is constituted according to the holding of shares by the shareholders. A person who purchases a share or shares is called as a shareholder, and a shareholder could be any individual or a juristic person. A share creates to its holder a bundle of rights and obligations. Under section 44 of the Companies Act 2013, a share is a movable property transferable in the manner provided by the articles of the company. Under subsection 7 to section 2 of the Sale of Goods Act 1930, shares and stock or goods which mean movable property. The concept of company form of carrying business and share thereon was originated from the English law. The company law developed further by the British common law and the judicial precedents thereon. In Borland's Trustee versus Steele Brothers, reported in 1901, Volume 1, Chancery, page 279, Justice Farewell defined a share as the interest of a shareholder in the company measured by a sum of money for the purpose of liability and of dividend, and further comprising of a series of mutual covenants entered into by all the shareholders among themselves in accordance with the Companies Act. Lord Justice Lindley in Re National Bank of Wales, reported in 66, LJ Chancery, pages 225-226, observed that a share in a company does not denote rights only and denotes obligations also. The company law, even though was originated from the English law, has been indigenized as per the needs of the Indian business and industry. However, the basic concepts like a company, corporate entity, shares, stock, debentures, and like ones remain same, as these concepts have universal application and implications. Much law in this regard is developed by the Supreme Court of India and various high courts in India. In Commission of Income Tax versus Standard Vacuum Oil Company, reported in 1966, Volume 1, Company LJ, page 187 SC, the Supreme Court of India held that a share is an interest measured by a sum of money and made up of diverse rights conferred on its holders by the articles of the company, which constitute a contract between him and the company. Thus, the share plays a most pivotal role in the corporate governance and is the life spring of a company. Without the share capital, a company cannot come into existence at all. Stock is the consolidation of shares. However, the return on the share capital is payable only out of the profits of the company. Stock. Stock denotes the capital stock in totality and the holding of consolidation of shares as stock by a shareholder who is otherwise called stockholder. We will study in detail various aspects of shares and stock in the further lessons. Viewers, now we will learn about debentures and debenture stock. Debenture is one of the most important securities providing long-term loan capital to the company. According to subsection 30 to section 2 of the Companies Act 2013, debenture includes debenture stock, bonds, or any other instrument of a company evidencing a debt, whether constituting a charge on the assets of the company or not. There are different definitions of the term debenture by several juries and courts of law, both in India and in England, but the essence and meaning are one and the same. Basically, the concept of debentures is originated from English law, as is the case with the shares. Definition of debenture. We will now examine some of the definitions about the debentures. In Chief Controlling Revenue Authority versus Manager, State Bank of Mysore, reported in 1989, Volume 65, Company Cases, page 427, the Karnataka High Court observed that debenture is one of the means of the raising funds by anyone, but generally by companies in the interest of trade, commerce, and industry. Topham, in his book Company Law, define the debenture as a document given by a company as an evidence of a debt to the holder, usually arising out of a loan and most commonly secured by a charge. Palmer, in his work Company Law, defined debenture as an instrument under seal evidencing a debt, the essence of it being the admission of indebtedness. The Bombay High Court in Lakshman Bharamji versus Emperor, reported in AIR 1946 Bombay, page 18, observed that the debentures normally indicate the security against the loan taken by the company and contain the conditions of repayment, date, rate of interest payable to the holder, and they may even create a charge on the company's property. Justice Chitty in Levy versus Abercorris State and Company, reported in 1887, volume 37, Chancery Division, page 260, defined a debenture as a document which either creates a debt or acknowledges, and any document which fulfills either of these documents. Thus, the debentures are the acknowledgement of a debt by a company, and it is repayable after a particular stipulated period, unlike the shares, but it is transferable like the shares. So, there is a lot of distinction between shares and debentures. However, the debentures are issued in the similar manner as of shares through prospectus. The issue of shares and debentures is regulated by the guidelines and regulations of the Securities and Exchange Board of India and the other corporate laws narrated in the other lessons. Section 71 of the Companies Act 2013 contains the various provisions pertaining to the debentures. It also describes the basic characteristics of debentures. Characteristics of debentures. Debentures constitute a loan of the company to the holder. Debenture holders are the creditors of the company. Debenture holders are entitled to receive the stipulated rate of interest, whether the company gets any profits or not. Debenture holders are entitled to receive their interest, whether dividends are paid or not, to the shareholders. Debenture holders cannot exercise any voting rights in the corporate governance, but they can exercise class rights to protect their own interest. Debentures are issued generally against a charge on the assets of the company, unlike the shares. Debenture is issued in the form of a certificate under the name of the company. Debenture is compulsorily repayable or in the alternative convertible into shares. Debenture holders are protected by the debenture trustees. Debentures are transferable like shares. Debenture stock. Debenture stock is consolidation of the entire debentures into a single account without carrying any face value for each debenture individually. As for example, debentures can be issued with a face value of rupees 100 each into 1 lakh in number, thus totaling to rupees 1 crore. Even a single debenture of the face value of rupees 100 is transferable. In case of debenture stock, individual division of a debenture with a face value of rupees 100 will not be there. The debenture stock is issued as rupees 1 crore for public subscription, and the holding of a debenture holder will be in the form of debenture stock of rupees 20,000 or rupees 20 lakhs and so on, in accordance with the holder's subscription. It will not be in the face value of rupees 100. The stock holding is depicted in a consolidated form. The other features of debenture stockholders are one and the same, as is the case of debentures. We will study in detail various aspects of debentures and debenture stock in the future lessons. We will now learn about another kind of securities called derivatives. Derivatives. A derivative is a security and also known as a contingent claim. Derivative is an innovation in Indian capital market. Derivative is used in the capital market as a risk management tool according to subsection 33 of section 2 of the Companies Act 2013. Derivative means the derivative as defined in clause AC of section 2 of the Securities Contracts Regulation Act 1956. According to this clause AC, derivative includes a security derived from a debt instrument, share, loan, whether secured or unsecured, risk instrument or contract for differences or any other form of security. B, a contract which derives its value from the prices or index of prices of underlying securities. Under subclause IA to clause H of section 2 of the Securities Contracts Regulation Act 1956, securities include a derivative. Thus, a derivative is basically a security. Its value depends on the values of various other variables in the capital market. Derivatives are used in the market to facilitate temporarily hedging of price risk of inventory holding, normally for a few months period. According to Wikipedia, in finance, a derivative is a contract that derives its value from the performance of an underlying entity. This underlying entity can be an asset, index, or interest rate, and is often simply called the underlying. Derivatives can be used for a number of purposes, including insuring against price movements, hedging, increasing exposure to price movements for speculation, or getting access to otherwise hard to trade assets or markets. Some of the more common derivatives include forwards, futures, options, swaps, and variations of these, such as synthetic collateralized debt obligations and credit default swaps. Most derivatives are traded over the counter, off exchange, or on an exchange such as the Bombay Stock Exchange, while most insurance contracts have developed into a separate industry. Derivatives are one of the three main categories of financial instruments, the other two being stocks, that is equities or shares, and debt, that is bonds and mortgages. Basis of derivatives. As stated before, the payoff structure of a derivative depends upon the value of an underlying commodity, security, share price index, exchange, and interest rates, and the like ones. However, a derivative instrument does not by itself constitute any ownership. The derivatives are based on several types of products and assets like currency, interest rates, equity, money market instrument, short-term financial assets, commodities like grains, cotton, wool, and like ones, metals which are very precious like gold, silver, copper, and the like ones, foreign exchange rates, bonds, and other securities, and like ones. Advantage of derivatives. The derivatives are used for reducing the funding costs. The derivative can be used as a risk management tool and also as a risk profiting tool. The derivatives are expected to be the dominant financial instrument of the future as analyzed by the financial analysts and experts. The globalization is increasing the usage of derivatives as risk management products. A derivative could be used further in transfer in market risk by hedging. Hedging is a technique designed to reduce or eliminate financial risk. The derivative market plays a most pivotal role in the capital market, more specifically in the financial market, and facilitates risk transfer, price discovery, market completion, and like functions. Usage of derivatives is a global phenomenon today and plays a very prominent role in the stock exchanges in the world. Prominent stock exchanges dealing with derivatives are National Stock Exchange India, Chicago Board of Trade, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, London International Financial Futures Exchange, Kansas City Board of Trade. We will learn still more about the derivatives in the other lessons. We will now learn about various other kinds of securities. Bonds. A bond is a debt investment. By purchasing the bonds, the holder loans money to the borrower. Bonds are issued by the companies, governments, agencies of the government, and non-government entities. The holders are the creditors of the issuers. The bonds carry a particular rate of interest and are repayable after a stipulated period, normally a longer period. Bonds are transferable but subject to the provisions of the Government Securities Act 2006 and the Government Securities Regulations 2007 and other regulations which may be issued from time to time by the central government. Bond is defined only under subsection 5(2), section 2 of the Indian Stamp Act 1899. Different kinds of bonds can be issued by different entities such as government guaranteed bonds, municipal bonds, disaster bonds, tax saving bonds, floating rate bonds, easy exit bonds, capital index bonds, convertible bonds, euro convertible bonds, and like ones. Collective investment scheme to the investors. All investments in the nature of equity, debt, deposit, advance, and like ones for the benefit of a group of investors under a scheme are called collective investment schemes. According to clause BA to subsection 1 of section 2 of the Securities and Exchange Board of India Act 1992, the collective investment scheme means any scheme of arrangement which satisfies the conditions specified in section 11AA of the said Act. Section 11AA stipulates a detailed criteria for the said scheme. It covers pooling of the contribution of investors and their employing different properties, funds, and such ones. However, the investors cannot have day-to-day control over the management of the properties. The Securities and Exchange Board of India has issued several regulations in this regard. Mutual funds. Mutual funds are globally proven attractive investments. Mutual fund is an investment intermediary but non-banking and non-depository in nature. Here, the holders do not directly invest in shares, debentures, and like ones. The holders contribute to the mutual fund run by the banks, financial institutions, and other institutions, and these institutions invest this money in various securities, and the holders are paid a fixed percentage of return. These institutions issue units to the investors which are redeemed at a later date. The units are transferable. This business is carried by prominent institutions like Unit Trust of India, State Bank of India, LIC of India, and various private institutions and public sector banks. Mutual funds are regulated by the Securities and Exchange Board of India. There are different types of mutual funds like equity fund, growth fund, real estate fund, open-ended scheme, closed-ended scheme, hedge fund, international fund, dual purpose fund, and so on. There are various other types of securities like scrips, security receipt, as defined in clause ZG of section 2 of the Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Assets and Enforcement of Security Interest Act 2002. Government securities and such other instruments as may be declared by the central government as securities. In this regard, reference should be made to clause H of section 2 of the Securities Contracts Regulation Act 1956, which defines the term securities. Any kind of security must fit into this definition in order to be called as a security in the connotation of capital markets and to get legal force. We will discuss various legal aspects of securities in detail in the other lessons. Viewers, hope you have enjoyed this session. We will meet in the next session. Thank you.